What I mean, it was like I wanted to make sure that I was in complete control of my situation, as did, my management team. And so I had the creative space to just figure out myself and figure out my sound and who and what I was going to represent.
In 2021, H.E.R. stood on the Grammy stage holding the Song of the Year award for I Can't Breathe, a protest anthem she wrote in her mother's house during the George Floyd protests. But what the cameras didn't show was the war she was fighting backstage. That same year, we saw her win an Oscar for Fight for You, calling the track a stamp in time, and the industry lined up to congratulate her. Yet, sources familiar with her inner circle say the real drama began just months later, as she joined Coldplay for a stadium tour in 2022, performing for up to 80,000 fans a night. Insiders claim she was privately asking herself, "What am I doing? Who am I doing this for?" This wasn't the standard post-tour exhaustion that hits every performer. People close to her describe a pattern, one that's followed her from her teenage years straight to the highest peaks of modern music.
Crazy, right? Like you
And you will again and again and again and again.
You don't care in the beginning, you just do, and then you work, and then suddenly you have to think about what you do, and then it ruins it.
To make sense of this crisis, we have to rewind to 2016. That's when Gabrielle, her legal name, vanished from public view for nearly 2 years after her first major label single, Something to Prove, failed to break through. At 19, she erased herself from the scene. No interviews, no face, just a silhouette and a new identity. H.E.R., which, as she's confirmed, stands for Having Everything Revealed. The irony, according to industry veterans, didn't go unnoticed. The very same networks and executives who rejected her as a teenager were suddenly obsessed with the mystery she created. The transformation was total. She reemerged with zero public profile, her image scrubbed from all press, and released music so intimate that speculation immediately exploded across fan sites and social media. By refusing to be seen, she forced the world to listen.
I mean, when you're 14, you don't know who you are yet. You don't know even who you want to be. So
Who's seen the talent that early?
Man, I mean, my parents, number one, but there were so many people. MBK Entertainment, they built Alicia Keys' career. Jeff Robinson is my manager. He kind of gave me that creative space, and we were kind of like going against, what RCA, it was like a push him.
The speed of her comeback was as dramatic as her disappearance. By 2017, we watched as Rihanna, then at the top of pop's food chain, posted H.E.R.'s music to millions of followers. The cosign set off a domino effect. Over the next 3 years, the momentum built with each release and every public nod. In 2019, H.E.R. collected 5 Grammy nominations, a level of recognition that established artists chased for decades. In 2020, she performed America the Beautiful at the Super Bowl, broadcasting her image and her signature sunglasses to millions. But the more mainstream visibility she gained, the tighter she clung to her anonymity. She told reporters at the time, "I wanted my music to be the main focus." Yet, according to several former associates, the anonymity wasn't just about artistry. Insiders claim it was survival. The same executives who dismissed her as a teenager were, by her mid-20s, attempting to control her creative direction, her business deals, and even her public statements. But the pressure would soon escalate from creative differences to legal jeopardy. In 2020, her breakout song, Could Have Been, was hit with a copyright lawsuit. The plaintiffs were Take 6, a well-established gospel group who alleged that H.E.R. lifted substantial original segments from their 1990 track Come Unto Me without permission. The suit, filed in Manhattan federal court, spelled out claims of compositional and lyrical overlap, raising uncomfortable questions about where inspiration ends and imitation begins. H.E.R. never commented publicly. We noted that the case didn't immediately dent her career, but it wasn't the first time she'd faced legal threats behind the scenes. According to legal filings reviewed by media, another lawsuit had targeted her previous releases, suggesting a pattern of behind-the-scenes disputes that rarely made the headlines.
We try to formulate and box artistry and try to turn it into something, and it just has to be what it is. And I think I kind of was like this a little bit, like, okay, what do I, how do I move? And I started to kind of like be in my head a lot, and I finally let go again.
Against this backdrop, her public image remained meticulously managed. On stage at the 2021 Grammys, H.E.R. declared, "We are the change we wish to see," urging the industry to keep the same energy as the protest summer of 2020. But behind those words, sources close to her team were reportedly seeing a different reality. By the next year, while touring massive arenas with Coldplay, she was dealing with internal conflict. Allegedly, she confided to friends that she felt like a puppet, celebrated by crowds but disconnected from her own work. The larger the stage, the less control she seemed to have over her direction.
We should be comfortable with being vulnerable, and I think I lost that for a second.
Yeah.
And I think it was the expectations of like people around me, and I kind of fell into that, like, okay, the success is here. Like, you have to maintain that. You have to protect it. You have to do what you did before, but better this time. And it's like, you can't do that.
Tensions didn't come out of nowhere. If we look further back, the signs of friction were present from the very beginning. Born in 1997 in Vallejo, California, Gabriella Wilson grew up in a family where music was daily life. By the age of 3, she could already play 5 instruments. At 8, she published her first poetry book. Early media appearances, performing Alicia Keys on The Today Show at 10, covering Aretha Franklin at the Apollo Theater, and later singing at the BET Awards, cemented her status as a prodigy. By 14, she was signed to Sony's RCA Records, one of the youngest to land such a deal. But that early push came with a cost. Industry sources recall that she was subject to the same pressures that break older, more seasoned artists: relentless branding, packaged sound, commercial expectations. The single, Something to Prove, released under her legal name in 2014, didn't deliver the breakout the label wanted, and insiders say the setback left her feeling disposable.
Understood who I was as an artist, that I understood and respected and kind of dug deeper into the process of making music, which made the Curtis Mayfield process even more fascinating, because when you dig into arrangements and, guitar parts and lyrics, like, that's a whole other thing. And so, I got signed to RCA when I was 13, 14 years old, and a lot of people don't know that. And, I was performing and developing as a songwriter and as an artist, because
it's here that the H.E.R. persona was born. According to multiple interviews, she created the new identity as both a shield and a strategy. "I want people to hear the music for what it is and not have any judgments," she explained years later. Yet the industry's hunger for novelty turned her self-protective move into a marketing sensation. As the mystery deepened, more celebrities rallied to her side: Usher, Alicia Keys, Bryson Tiller, and later Rihanna, fueling speculation and driving her streaming numbers sky high. By the time her debut EP dropped in late 2016, the music spoke for itself. The compilation album H.E.R., released in 2017, peaked at number 23 on the Billboard 200, netting her 5 Grammy nominations. At the 2019 awards, she won for Best R&B Album and Best R&B Performance. The industry that had once ignored her now couldn't get enough. But we can see that success on paper doesn't erase old doubts. Even as accolades stacked up, H.E.R. kept her distance from typical celebrity routines. She maintained strict control over her image, rarely appearing without sunglasses and turning down interview requests. In a 2018 radio interview, she said, "Even though I don't show my face and I don't tell people who I am, really you get to know who I am in my music." That paradox, concealment as honesty, set her apart in an era of oversharing. But insiders say it also created friction with her management and label, who saw the value of the secret but pushed for greater exposure as her star rose.
Also, a part of it was kind of, you had already experienced being in the limelight a little bit as a child star, and it was kind of like, I know what that feels like, and it's superficial, as you just kind of pointed out.
I wouldn't consider it being a child star. I mean, I guess people kind of
child prodigy.
Man.
Meanwhile, her activism became increasingly central to her public persona. The protest anthem I Can't Breathe was written in the chaos of the George Floyd protests, recorded in her mother's home, and built into a Grammy-winning rallying cry. She described the song as a way to turn pain into impact. But the same activism that won critical acclaim also positioned her as a spokesperson for a new generation of R&B. This came with its own risks. The industry, eager to align itself with the right causes, pushed her onto stages like the Super Bowl and into voting roles for both the Grammys and Oscars. According to former collaborators, the weight of these expectations clashed with her desire for privacy and creative autonomy. The copyright suit over Could Have Been is a case in point. The claim by Take 6 alleged that she used protected material without authorization, and the fact that H.E.R. never commented publicly raised speculation about legal settlements and the possible involvement of her management. Industry insiders say the silence may have been strategic, designed to avoid fueling further litigation or attracting unwanted media attention. Yet some believe it also highlights a deeper tension between her need to protect her art and the commercial machinery around her.
There's too much on, the superficial things, and, with social media, it's always about the looks, and it's always about all the clicks and all the stuff that's happening right now, the gossip. And I really just wanted to focus on the message and the music and what I have to present in my art. And that's what it really was.
As the accolades continued, so did the pressure to deliver. By 2021, H.E.R. had accumulated 4 Grammy Awards, an Oscar, and an Emmy nomination. She was now in the running for the coveted EGOT, a status achieved by only a handful of artists. But people close to her say the more the industry celebrated her, the less connected she felt to her own achievements. The Grammy and Oscar wins, which should have marked the peak, reportedly coincided with a growing sense of alienation. When we trace her career timeline, the contradictions pile up. The girl who hid from the spotlight now found herself unable to escape it. Her original decision to erase her face was an attempt to escape judgment and regain agency. But the marketing of that very mystery soon became another set of expectations. According to her own statements and multiple press accounts, the music industry has a pattern of repackaging rebellion into sellable brand assets. H.E.R.'s silhouette became as recognizable as her sound.
Something I have to remember, like, you have to be unafraid of the things that make you you, and they're usually imperfect things, like, flaws and all. But yeah, imperfection in music is feeling. It's real emotion. Like, sometimes I might sing a song in the booth or whatever, and the first take will be it because the raw emotion is there.
Insiders say that by the time she hit the road with Coldplay in 2022, these pressures had reached a breaking point. Playing to crowds of 60 to 80,000 in city after city, she was experiencing the pinnacle of commercial success. But backstage, she was grappling with what one associate describes as a full-blown identity crisis. According to those familiar with her state of mind during this period, she began questioning not just her career, but her sense of self. The same machinery that had turned her story into a global sensation now threatened to erase her again, this time not by accident, but by overwhelming her with demands she hadn't signed up for. The rumors didn't take long to surface. Several industry sources allege that key decisions about touring, merchandise, and public appearances were made without her direct consent. Insiders claim that management teams were weaponizing her brand, leveraging her image for deals and endorsements she wasn't always comfortable with. The higher the stakes, the more isolated she became. Meanwhile, the unresolved copyright suit and other legal disputes simmered in the background, casting long shadows over her victories. Her Grammy speech in 2021 is worth revisiting. "We are the change we wish to see," she declared, referencing the summer's protests. But behind the words, sources suggest, she was realizing that the change she wanted wasn't actually happening, not in the ways that mattered to her. By early 2022, H.E.R. was facing a stark choice. As one former associate puts it, either she took control of her career again, or she risked being swallowed by the very system she'd outmaneuvered. This set the stage for the questions that now hang over her next chapter. If H.E.R. had to hide her identity to be heard, what happened when the industry finally forced her into the spotlight and she didn't like what she saw? The answer came in 2024 when H.E.R. did something unexpected. She started mentoring young artists through LG's Life's Good Music project. We watched her step into the spotlight not just as a performer, but as a guide, telling her protégés, there's a responsibility to create the new leaders of change after you've done it yourself. The message was empowering, at least on the surface, but as insiders started whispering, we were left to wonder, was she preparing these hopeful talents for the same kind of fight she lost, or just passing on a warning about the industry's hidden costs?
And I think there's things that happen in your life that kind of lead you to making it versus, experiencing it or listening to it. I always loved music. I loved poetry. I would write. I performed a lot when I was a kid with my dad's band around the Bay Area. And I think I learned a lot of songs, and I was kind of, performing covers. I was singing Curtis Mayfield songs. I was singing a lot of songs from the 70s. And
behind the scenes, legal turmoil still shadowed her so-called victory lap. In 2020, another lawsuit surfaced, this one from musician Andre Sims, who demanded $3 million and accused H.E.R. and her team of lifting his composition, Endless Minds, for her debut project. This wasn't just about creative inspiration, Sims alleged in court filings. It was about taking the very DNA of his work and spinning it into stardom. He didn't mince words, either. "I just can't believe she's out here performing on TV thanks to the benefit of my original song, as if they didn't use my music to get her there." 2 lawsuits in 2 years, both accusing the industry's most authentic voice of building a legacy on borrowed material. The label kept its statements to a minimum, but behind closed doors, former staff describe a sense of chaos, nervous meetings, legal reviews, damage control strategies that sometimes bordered on frantic. But we have to ask, did these courtroom battles define the real scandal, or were they just the tip of something deeper? The more we look, the more we see a pattern that's as much about personal survival as professional risk. Because while the headlines obsessed over intellectual property, those closest to H.E.R. say the core drama was internal, a reckoning about who really owned her voice and her future.
Film as well, but music is such an important extension of who we are. It's like the other thing we can't, live without. It's like food, air, water, music. Like it's essential to life because it says the things that sometimes we can't articulate ourselves, or it expresses an emotion that we can't always put to words.
By mid-2024, H.E.R. was no longer hiding her frustration. In interview after interview, she described entering what she called her selfish phase. For the first time, she spoke openly about prioritizing her own well-being over industry demands, admitting to reporters that she'd learned to say no, step back, and even walk away from lucrative offers if they clashed with her values. She called it growth. But insiders say it was more like a last stand, a controlled retreat from a machine that had celebrated her one moment and suffocated her the next. The contradictions were impossible to ignore. In the very same year that she picked up an Emmy for her work on the Obama's Netflix series, H.E.R. was allegedly pulling back from the system that made her famous. We saw her telling young artists to love pain and love discomfort as if they were badges of honor, but sources close to her management claim these were less motivational mantras and more veiled confessions. Was she warning the next generation that the industry's rewards come loaded with invisible costs? One trusted advisor reportedly told friends that H.E.R. was facing a crossroads, either play by the old rules or risk losing everything she'd fought for. But according to multiple industry sources, she was ready to gamble.
Now, you've put out how many projects now?
How many
Albums
projects?
and EPs?
I mean, just
4?
EPs. Yeah, pretty much about four EPs.
So on purpose, you didn't want to come talk to us because you were like, I live down the street, I'm going to get popping, and I'm going to come see them after I win a Grammy, and that way they can't do any funny.
The whispers grew louder as 2024 wore on. Former road managers, session musicians, and producers who'd worked with her all pointed to the same shift. H.E.R. was now refusing to play by the book. No more silent compliance, no more rubber-stamped schedules, no more performing on autopilot to fill someone else's quota. If it meant walking away from headline slots, she was ready. If it meant turning down multi-million-dollar endorsement deals, she didn't flinch. According to a veteran tour director, the word backstage was that she had stopped chasing approval altogether. Instead, she was building her own blueprint, choosing collaborations, designing shows, and releasing new work only when it fit her vision, not the label's calendar. Some called it arrogance, others called it overdue, but no one could deny the impact. The industry's most guarded artist had become its most unpredictable. We saw her pop up at exclusive jazz clubs in NYC, then vanish from the festival circuit without warning. She would tease new music on social media only to delete the posts hours later. Even her closest associates struggled to keep up. One confidant described her as unreachable at times, deeply private, fiercely protective of her process, and unwilling to let anyone, not even longtime collaborators, call the shots. This new independence won her a loyal following among fellow artists, many of whom saw her stance as a blueprint for creative freedom in a business still run by contracts and control.
I guess, from, like you said, from a young age, I was performing and doing things, but just because I love music. It was out of my love for music, whether people knew me or not. I was, performing, and then the next day I'd be on the playground in school, so it was never about popularity or people, saying, oh, that's so-and-so. Like, it was just me doing what I love. And
meanwhile, rumors about her legal woes kept swirling. As the Sims lawsuit moved slowly through the courts, music blogs and TMZ-style outlets debated whether she would settle quietly or fight it out in public. For a performer who had spent years cultivating the image of absolute authenticity, any hint of borrowed work carried a particular sting. Industry lawyers pointed out that even if the courts ruled in her favor, the shadow of suspicion could linger for years, yet the public seemed divided. Some believed the allegations were just the cost of success, others saw them as evidence that no one, not even H.E.R., was immune to the industry's darkest habits. Despite all this, her role as a mentor continued to grow. Through the LG Project and beyond, she offered advice to young performers on everything from contract negotiation to stage fright. But there was always an edge to her counsel, when she urged them to embrace discomfort, to accept setbacks, and to keep fighting for control over their stories. We couldn't help but notice the tension beneath the words. Was she preparing them to face the same betrayals, the same compromises, the same endless scrutiny she'd endured? Or was she daring them to do what she finally had, break the cycle, even if it meant risking everything?
How did you get into the industry?
Man, I mean, it's a long story, but I've been doing music for a really long time. My dad was a musician just for fun. And I was singing as a young kid, and things just happened the way they were supposed to happen.
In private, those closest to H.E.R. describe her as more determined than ever. According to sources who attended her closed-door writing sessions in LA and London, she is experimenting with new sounds and collaborating with artists outside the usual R&B sphere. Some say she's plotting a radical reinvention, the kind that could shake the foundations of her fanbase and the industry alike. Others warn that her newfound independence comes at a price: fewer guarantees, more uncertainty, and perhaps a permanent rift with the networks that built her career. But if the last year has taught us anything, it's that H.E.R. is willing to risk her place at the top to finally claim ownership of her story. So here's the final question. If H.E.R. really fought for her artistic soul, and the industry still found a way to control her, what does that say about the music we love and the artists we think we know? Drop your thoughts below. Do you still believe in the myth of the untouchable superstar, or is every idol just one secret away from breaking the illusion? Until next time, keep your ears open and your mind sharp, because in this business, the real story is always just out of sight.